My name's Troy. This is my brother Trent. He's an icky chemist. I'm a biologist. And we are
The Bourbon Brother Whiskey Nerds.
This is the first blind for the channel. And we picked a doozy. Buffalo Trace, Nashville, #1.
Buffalo Trace is superb at doing something that we talk about often, making whiskey for the masses. Everything they do, it seems, is designed for the masses. They don't have really high proof offerings so as to please everyone, the masses. They have a sweeter whiskey, very low rye mash bill, just so everyone's aware. Buffalo Trace broadly runs 4 mash bills. One of them is a wheated mash bill. Means there's no rye at all in the bourbon. Shuts down on the spiciness a little bit. That's also probably also for the masses. Rye whiskey is a little bit more spicy, a little bit more peppery, sometimes a little minty and a little bit of dill. The masses aren't going to like that as much as they are the sweeter profile whiskeys that are a little bit more corn heavy. All of their rye containing whiskeys are very low rye. They have 2 mash bills in the rye containing mash bill set at Buffalo Trace. One of them they call the high rye mash bill. It's really not very much high rye. It's probably 12 to 15% rye. Unless you're really familiar with ancient age or anything like that, about the only offerings, that are really out there on the big marketplace that are going to be in the high rye mash bill are things like Blue Run, which is the high rye mash bill, and things like Elmer T. Lee is the high rye mash bill, and then of course the granddaddy of them all, Troy.
George T. Stagg.
Yep.
Which we have actually had, and not in this blind. But
right. Today we're going to focus mostly on the mass marketed big name whiskeys from Buffalo Trace. Okay, we have 4 in the blind today, all mash bill #1, which is low rye, below 10%. It's probably something like 80% corn. So this is going to be a very corn heavy. Corn needs to add sort of a nice sweetness to the whiskey. And so this is a very corn heavy whiskey. We have 3 contenders today. The first of them, okay?
Especially a 4 today.
4 contenders today. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. The first of them, coming in at an MSRP of $20, is Benchmark Bonded. Benchmark whiskey has lots of various offerings. This is the bonded, which of course means it's at 100 proof. It's said to be the minimum of a bonded whiskey of about 4 years old. Next up, the granddaddy of them all, Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace comes in at 90 proof and is said to be primarily about 8 years old. Roughly the range is between 4 and 8. I mean, I'm sure that's a huge dump of batch.
It might be thousands of barrels.
Who knows, right? Most of them are said to be about 8 years old. It is non-age stated. Okay. Next up in MSRP, on the other side of the table here is Eagle Rare. Eagle Rare is age stated at 10 years old. One of the dirty little secrets, if you're an intro whiskey drinker, is that all of the good deals in whiskey are from the legacy distillers. You don't have to like it, but it's true. It's just a fact. Eagle Rare, MSRP of $35. Usually we can get Buffalo Trace here for a little bit below that $30 mark, about $27. I think Eagle Rare comes right in at about that $35 mark. And then for us, we buy E.H. Taylor for about $45 here in Pennsylvania. MSRP is somewhere around $40. Colonel E.H. Taylor, former descendant of the 12th President Zachary Taylor, infamous for not infamous, but famous for the Bottled and Bond Act of 1867. And this is the Bottled and Bond whiskey, Colonel E.H. Taylor, small batch. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through these whiskeys from our left to our right. For you guys, that'll be from right to left. But we will go through the whiskeys. We'll make some comments on some tasting notes and some nosing notes. Let's start here with letter A.
And while we're tasting here a little bit, Trent and I had the privilege of actually going to Buffalo Trace just this past fall. If you can get down there, guys, I gotta tell you, you need to make a trip.
It really is fun.
It's free.
Yeah, very rare.
Free.
Very rare.
I mean, it's just an unbelievable day. It'll take you about an hour. It's really phenomenal. One of the things that we were absolutely floored with was one of the questions we had asked our tour guide was how many barrels they had aging on the property. 1.7 million. That's one distillery, ladies and gentlemen. It's about 53 gallons in each barrel, one distillery, and they were building additional capacity for about another million to 1.2 million. That's an astounding amount of whiskey.
Buffalo Trace is sometimes sort of divisive because people think that it's not worth the time, not worth the effort. You have to chase it. They call these people Buffalo chasers. And I think, I don't want to speak for Troy, but I think all of us would defend at MSRP all of these offerings. If you're not in a state where the liquor and thus the prices are controlled, you might have to go up to 40, 50 bucks for Buffalo Trace. I don't know that I'd pay more than 40 for just off the shelf Buffalo Trace. For the real tough to find one is sometimes
This is hard for us to find.
Yeah, no, I've never seen it in the wild. Troy got this one. But E.H. Taylor, really tough to find. Would you pay 50 bucks for it?
I probably would. Yeah,
I don't know that
pay
I
55.
I don't know that I would go more than that. But
and the benchmark facings we do not get. I bought this in Kentucky. Other states nearby do get regular offerings. So we're going to dive right in.
definitely sweet.
Yeah.
Buttered popcorn.
There's a little brightness in here, a citrus note.
You get a little bit of a spice note. There's some nice baking spices in here. It's amazing to me that something can have less than 10% rye. Again, maybe it's 7-8% rye. Even if it's 9% rye, who cares? And have as many baking spice notes as you have on some of these. All right, folks, cheers.
That's a really approachable bourbon.
It's an easy sip.
It's a great way to start your drinking journey, if you will.
Right.
Or a good pour to start with, a good first pour of the night, a good first pour of the day. There's nothing wrong with that.
If I have a complaint, I think it's a little thin, and I'm a little disappointed in the finish. There's really not much going on there, but it's a nice bright, you mentioned some citrus notes, a nice bright sweet sip, certainly some sweetness. And I think the palate comes through, or the nose comes through on the palate a little bit too. You do get some of those buttery popcorn notes. Not a bad note to have in a bourbon. I love a good buttered popcorn. That's letter A. Letter B. Okay.
Now there's a little bit more going on in here.
Oak.
This is older.
It's got some depth.
The oak notes are coming through.
It's actually a little darker too. You can see the color.
Tiny bit. It's hard to tell in the little pores, but I think it is a little bit darker.
Highly recommend you invest in some of these Tiny Glencairns.
They're called wee Glencairns, which we
is a good word.
Very much.
Just W-E-E, I think.
W-E-E, that's correct.
If you go wee, like that's W-H-E.
I think that's W-H-E.
Is that a homonym?
Homophone? Something like that.
Get ourselves in trouble. Mispronounce some word.
There's the oak presence on this is definitely there.
Very, very nice. I actually really dig the nose on this. Comes through on the palate beautifully.
It's denser.
Mm-hmm.
It's more viscous. It's a little creamier. It's a little more mouth coating. There's definitely more of a finish. A surprising amount of spice again coming through for these rye percentages below 10%. It's amazing how they get a finish on some of these whiskeys.
And people pick on Buffalo Trace, and people can hate on some of these things, and that's fine. And is there whiskey that we like better than off-the-shelf Buffalo Trace? Of course. But you're not paying for the best whiskey you've ever had, which is why I would recommend you not pay for the best whiskey you ever had. I think at some point we'll probably do a daily sippers episode, what we find ourselves reaching for day after day. Buffalo Trace isn't going to be in it because on a daily sipper, you need something you can find. Every store you walk into, and Buffalo Trace just isn't it. Okay, no matter where you live. But that is a really nice sip.
Yeah, number 2 is pretty good.
A really nice sip. Ooh, fruit.
It is very fruit forward. Little apple note.
Yeah, there's something
green apple.
Like a pear. Man, oh man.
Very bright and fruity.
Whew. I was not expecting this to be as fruitful. I had to have had this before.
I think we've had all.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Not as much oak as on B.
I think it's a little younger.
Yep. Now there is a little bit of a nice oak there that I get deeper in there.
And you'll notice as we're nosing, we're switching sides. Just like people have eye dominance, you can actually have nostril dominance.
This is a great little Bourbon Brother Whiskey Nerd factoid. You can be right or left nostril dominant. So when you're nosing whiskey, don't be afraid to switch sides.
And nose with your mouth open, and
Yep.
nose with your mouth closed.
Yep. Try it different ways. All sorts of ways you can go. My microphone's falling off here. I really like the flavor of this whiskey.
Fruit notes coming on this, yeah.
I'm getting more oak on the palate. It doesn't come through on the nose. A little bit more of a finish. Boy, that's sort of nice. Darn it, I'm already having trouble. I know what I like better between 1 and 2 here, but now number 3 is making me think.
It's a little thinner, not quite as viscous. It kind of falls off. I don't think there's much of a finish on this. Kind of nosedives right after, it crosses the back of the palate.
I think I must have gotten a little bit more of a finish than you did, but I understand what you mean. You're certainly right about the mouthfeel. Hey, how does your mouth feel? It's that pervy term in whiskey, so how does your mouth feel?
My mouth feels fantastic.
I'm glad. My mouth feels as good as a mouth feels itself. Moving on to letter D here, number 4, depending on like the letter or count.
One of the things I think that's interesting, Trent, is you can definitely identify the cohesiveness of the mash bill here.
Yeah.
Like that is extremely apparent.
Well, and nothing here is going to bowl you over with rye flavor because it's not designed to. Again, these are whiskey for the masses. You're not trying to make something that only, 8 people on the planet like, and they're all whiskey nerds. You're trying to make something for the whole world to like.
But at the same time, there are distinct differences in all 4 of these things.
Oh my, yes.
Which
they all smell different.
I don't know how they do that.
It's amazing.
I mean, we say this often, they're just good at their job.
They're just really good. Boy, I like number 4 too. Doggone it.
I think number 4 is a little older too.
Oaky.
I'm having it.
Still, I get some buttered popcorn. That went away for me in number 2 and number 3. The buttered popcorn's back at number 4, mixed with some oak.
Not as fruit
forward. If you ate movie theater popcorn out of an oak basket, this is what it would smell like. There you go.
I like it. I like it.
I love buttered popcorn.
Oh.
My favorite
thing. Movie theater.
That's why you go to the
where
movies.
they pour the butter.
I mean, you don't have to go, right?
Goodness.
Yeah, it's so good. I really like 4.
A good bit more oak on the palate with this one. A good bit more oak.
Wanted this to be easier.
Is really going to challenge you.
Oh yeah,
and that's why you do it,
right?
And Trent and I sometimes like to sample different things and know what they are.
Well, I don't even know what to call that. A non-blind.
A non-blind.
Right.
An unblinded blind. I don't know. We'll have to make up a term for that. Yeah. I'm not sure.
I don't even know that there's a whiskey there.
I don't think there is.
Insane, so, maybe. Yes.
Perhaps. But again, because the blind removes some of the subjectivity from the equation, which I think is important.
It's easy to get label blind sometimes, and that's what the blind helps you with. To be fair, this isn't a true blind. Sometimes real researchers in the sciences call that a double blind, where we're just drinking whiskey. We don't even know what it is. We know what these 4 whiskeys are. The whole point of this is to do a blind of specific mash bill number 1, Buffalo Trace. Okay? It is a standout in the industry. We wanted to throw the Buffalo Trace people a bone here, see what we find. I'm going back to,
I gotta say, I'm really digging number 4. One of the other points I'll mention when we were at the distillery is I think they have been on that property in Frankfurt since 1787, if I recall correctly. And at that time, it was Virginia. Kentucky was not even a state when the Buffalo Trace Distillery was founded. That's some whiskey nerddom for you, right there.
Good history. They do have a buffalo statue at Buffalo Trace. His name is Rocky. Our tour guide told us. They'll ask you that question in the tour guide. So, when you're there and you get that question right, and the tour guide's impressed with you, remember Troy here, helping you out.
Give us some credit.
Yeah. Like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell.
Absolutely.
Don't want to miss an episode. That's all we ask, folks. Don't send us whiskey, as you can see behind us. We got plenty of whiskey. I'm working through these four again, Troy. Just
Yeah,
trying to
I'm
get
going
my
back
tasting.
through.
All right. I think I know what I'm going to do.
The other thing I think the blind does is it forces you to focus on what you're smelling, tasting, and experiencing with a whiskey.
The most important thing when you blind is don't try to figure out what it is. All you need to know is if you like it or you don't. This is the most important thing for you, especially if you're early on your bourbon journey, on your whiskey journey. You have to figure out what it is you like. What sort of whiskey drinker are you going to want to be? Do you like high rye bourbons? Do you like bourbons like this that are very low rye bourbons? Okay? All of that's fine. We don't care what the answer is. We just want you to figure it out. And that's what blinding does. Again, I'm not even trying to figure out what I have. I'm just trying to figure out if I like it. I have a sip left in each of them.
I think I've got my order.
Boy, oh boy. All right, I think I'm ready. All right, you want to do last place first?
We could do last place first. I'm going number one.
Fourth place first. Number one.
Number one.
Oh, I hope we go to great. I hope there are fisticuffs, right?
Arm wrestling. Seldom come to fisticuffs.
No,
and I win an arm wrestling.
That's totally true. I'm a wimp. Yeah. You want Troy in a bar fight? Yep. You do. If you're ever in a bar fight, you want Troy.
You probably want Trent on Jeopardy.
No, that's true, right? But the bar fight, Jeopardy. That should be a show. Bar fight Jeopardy. I'd watch the heck out of that.
Like, if you get the question wrong, you get beaten.
Right,
like,
by Troy.
I don't know.
Right, we wouldn't have to do this anymore. All right. Third place for me, going to be number 3.
I'm going to agree on that.
So 1, 3, and then I'm going to say I like number. There's some space between number 1 and number 3 here. I like number 3 a good bit more than number 1, but I think there's more space between those 2 and these 2. It was tough for me between 2 and 4.
I really struggled between
2 and 4 are just.
I really struggled.
I think they're the ones I'm reaching for a little bit more often. And number 2, boy,
I mean, we're splitting hairs on my side of
this
the
is why blinds are fun. By the width of a warthog whisker, I'm going to put number 2 in third place.
And I had number 4 in third place.
There you go. See, there's some disagreement.
So there is some disagreement, but no fisticuffs.
No fisticuffs. Because I respect the hell out of number 2. It's a great pour. I like it a lot. I went with number 4 in first place. Really liked the finish compared to number 2. That's what decided it for me. I just thought it was a more depth-filled pour, a little bit more mouthfeel, to go back to the pervy term, best term in whiskey, and just a little bit more developed, a little bit of more, as we like to say when we're drinking whiskey, a more interesting and
more intricate and interesting.
Yeah.
So a little bit of variation. Shall we find out what they are?
We got the results.
The results are here.
All right, Troy boy. In fourth place today.
In fourth place, Buffalo Trace.
No way.
I'm a little bit
Oh, wait.
impressed. Number 4 was Buffalo Trace.
No, well, that's not fourth place.
Oh, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize.
Number first out was Eagle Rare.
First out was Eagle Rare.
Yeah, we screwed that up. Boy, oh boy. I am surprised.
First
Wow.
out was Eagle Rare.
Man alive.
And the second out was E.H. Taylor.
Now, to be fair, again, I just mentioned this. This bottle was opened, sat in my house for a while. This bottle's a fresh crack. I don't know that that has anything to do with it, but again, little things like that can make a big difference. We try to, as consummate scientists,
Absolutely.
control those variables in our whiskey tastings. We just couldn't do it. E.H. Taylor's hard to find. We just found one.
I cracked it just for you.
Right,
I mean,
exactly. That's how
realistically.
much we love you, right?
Absolutely.
Number 2, your first place
My
one,
first
my
place.
third place one,
Was Benchmark.
which held strong. There's an awful lot of flavor in that for
I
a
gotta
$20
say,
whiskey.
For a $20 whiskey? Wow.
Benchmark bonded. There are lots of different benchmarks. They have. Don't buy the 80 proof crap. Benchmark number 8. That's a sentence you'll hear a lot around here. Don't buy the 80 proof crap. But this bonded, they have a top floor. We almost bought it last Friday. It's not expensive, but it's 86 proof. So the 2 100 proofers, and then my first place, Troy's second place, Buffalo Trace. We'll call those 2 a tie. We'll put them above the others. Interesting results. Once again, folks, can't go wrong with any of these whiskeys. We, I think, if I would have predicted the results here, I would not have been surprised if this ranked low. But I thought this was going to
I thought Eagle
Rare
Rare
would
have done
done
better. Yeah, I really honestly do.
Just
I really
an
honestly
interesting
do.
result.
I
today.
think had we known what they are, and you and I have often said that our favorite of the ones in front of us and you all is Eagle Rare.
Right. That's the one I'm reaching
I think
for.
the message again here is challenge yourself with a blind.
Right.
And really focus. We could do this again in an hour, and it might change.
It might be different.
We could do it tomorrow, and it might change.
Right.
It really is
2
a matter
weeks, it
of.
might change. Eagle Rare, $35 MSRP. Do you pay $50 for it?
I probably do.
I don't think I would go above
I don't
that.
think I'd go above $50.
I think I'd keep, for those that not in, liquor-controlled states like the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Buffalo Trace, we said max of about 40, 45, right? I think you pay 50, 55 if you need to. I see people paying $80
I would not pay that.
for Colonel E.H. Taylor small batch. Now, if you're lucky enough to find a single barrel and it's $80,
Yeah, do that.
you buy that and send us a
And
sample.
send us a sample.
Because we've never, had it before. Because we don't buy these whiskeys unless we find them, and they're of reasonable price. We're not paying secondary prices for these whiskeys. Now, highly recommend you go get a Benchmark bonded. Benchmark single barrel is also an excellent choice. We have that back here.
The full proof we have over there too, which
Really
is
good stuff.
also
Really good stuff. Full proof, just for those unaware, there's a rule in bourbon. At one point, we should probably go over the bourbon rule, that it has to go into the barrel at no more than 125 proof. You can go below 125. You can't go above 125. If you proof when the bourbon comes out of the barrel after aging down to that entry proof, you call it a full proof bourbon. Okay?
not to be confused with barrel proof or cask strength.
Right.
Because that's not what it means.
Barrel proof and cask strength means what?
It means what it came out of the barrel at
Right.
is what it went in the bottle at. They didn't add anything to it.
Right. That's the most exciting thing about barrel strength, cask strength, sometimes called
Barrel
barrel proof, right? Whiskeys, is that what was in there is what came out of the barrel. They are allowed to filter out the char, and that is it. Nothing else can touch it. It's a very pure form of drinking whiskey. No barrel proof offerings here today. We have plenty of barrel proof offerings that we can get to next time. In any case, big fan of the Benchmark. It almost won for me. It almost won.
It was close.
It came down to, again, I think these 2 are the big stars. Not as big the big surprise is Eagle Rare finishing last. Just wasn't as impressed with it today. But as Troy's mentioned more than once, I will echo this. make sure you blind whiskeys. We love to do blinds. It's always hard. It's always distressing, but it forces you into a mindset where you're just like, do I like this? It makes your palate better. It makes you a better whiskey nerd. We're all about you being a whiskey nerd.
Absolutely. I think in closing, what again impresses me is the identical mash bills. There is still a distinct difference in all of these.
They smell different.
They smell different. They taste different. They finish different. They have different viscosities, and all of that is cool, and I enjoy very much.
It goes to show the depth that you can do with whiskey. There probably isn't a more tightly controlled in terms of rules whiskey than bourbon. There's just so many rules.
Prescription drugs and whiskey.
Right, that's about it.
That might be it.
Right, yeah. So it's so tightly controlled, and yet there's such flavor differences. In any case, I think that's all for today. For Troy, I'm Trent. We want you to drink what you like and like what you drink. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everybody.